Hello everybody, Peter Mina, Columbia University. Today I'm going to be talking about a concept for publishing scientific information that can disrupt the publishing industry called Apertus, which means open or free. I think most people are on the same page that scientific information should be a common good. Most information is, and it's available on the internet. But most academic information sits behind a paywall. So it's expensive to access. The corporate profits of the companies that do this publishing are sky high. They're amongst the highest in industry at about 40%, so higher than Apple or Google. And university libraries are going bankrupt as a result of paying subscription fees to these companies. This is really remarkable because authors are not paid to publish. And the people who vet the scientific information, peer reviewers, they're not paid to comment. So this remarkable ecosystem of scientific publishers pocketing all of this money off the backs of free labor happens at the cost of development. So scientists in most of the world have no access at all. This is a model that is ripe for disruption, and disruption should be simple. But you really need two elements to disrupt this industry. One of them is low production costs, and this is very straightforward. Obviously, scientific publishers, what they do is they take your article and format it and make it into a nice, tidy, colorful PDF. And that does cost something. So you need to automate that process. And this is something that The Atlantic predicted would happen in the 1990s to scientific information, that the low production cost of information dissemination should mean that the academic publishers should have gone away, but they haven't. And the reason for that is prestige. So if you are a scientist at a university, you want to publish in a prestigious journal, a journal with a name, and that journal is usually linked to a for-profit publisher. And so, there's your ecosystem. There's how you trap authors within this ecosystem. So you have to be able to overcome this prestige problem. But before we talk about how to do that, let's talk about the current pain points within the existing for-profit publishing system. So the first is, think about what the reader has to go through. The reader has to read content behind a paywall. So that means they have to figure out how to get to that content. Usually the reader has to be at a, fairly wealthy university in order to access that information. Otherwise, you have to pay, upwards of $20 per article to read it. There's also a quality issue here. So with only 3 peer reviewers, you don't really know who those peer reviewers are. Vetting is sometimes not reliable. In fact, there have been studies of the quality of scientific literature that's shown that a lot of the scientific information that's out there is of very low quality. Replication studies are rare, and if they do happen, they tend to be showing that the original research was, potentially spurious or not valid. So another problem is that the reader can't really see the reviewer comments, can't access the quality of the reviewers, see some sort of objective metric of the quality of the reviewers, or access the underlying data in order to replicate the study. So the reader really doesn't know, what went into this article. They only know, is this author reputable or not? Is the journal reputable or not? And then they go from there. Okay, so the author also has pain points. Besides not getting paid, they also, spend hours formatting to any journal's given requirements, and some of these can be onerous. It takes a long time to upload your article into an editorial manager system. if you want your article to be widely disseminated, you have to pay for that. So they have open access fees. This has been a boon to publishers. It was supposed to disrupt the publishing industry, but of course, publishers love it because they're still getting their subscription fees. And now they're having some authors pay to actually format the article for them and then put it up onto their servers. So they're making even higher profit margins than they did before this quote unquote disruptive model of open access publishing came about. The author also has a problem of building their reputation. So, any author who's a junior faculty member, has difficulty publishing in the top tier journals because the editor doesn't know who they are. So this is a pain point. The editor also faces difficulties. Editorial manager systems work poorly, so they have to sort of deal with the poor quality of Elsevier and Wiley and everybody else submitting articles to their system and then having to go back and try and figure out what happened. And trying to find peer reviewers is a difficulty. These systems help them a little bit, but they are imperfect, and as a result, the peer reviewers are not always of very high quality. There's also a management burden, and editors aren't really paid very much to be editors, if anything at all. So here's another free point in the production service, and yet they still have to sometimes manage staff and figure out how to copy edit the work, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a pain point for them. There's a pain point for libraries, of course. It's a $20 billion industry, just ripe for disruption. But until it is, the libraries are paying that fees, and those fees, and that money could be going to tuition for minority students. It could be going towards building new facilities. It could be going towards a lot of good things, but instead it's going into the pockets of these publishers. Now, another social good of scientific information is that it can be compiled by AI. So to the extent that AI systems can train on scientific information, they can produce content that vastly accelerates science. So one example of that is Gemini's meta-analysis machine, which allows AI to scrape articles, assess their quality, and then compile them into a new article that says, the summary of the scientific literature in this specific research question is as follows. That's hugely useful, but these corporate AI systems also have to access content that's behind a paywall. Very expensive. So what's the solution to this? Obviously, automating production. AI is uniquely suited to formatting articles. It can take the text and turn it into the right color, font size, put it in columns, and can even copy edit the text and send the suggestions back to the author for vetting again. Of course, you might wonder, why do you even need pretty formatting in columns and stuff like that? It's a scientific publication after all. And most scientists already, many scientists, not most, already publish their work on a preprint server before they publish in a traditional publisher. And the reason for that is because it takes a long time to publish an article. So if you just upload it for the world to see before peer review, then it's possible to disseminate your information quickly and before any other scientists in your field get to it first. So why not just take the articles that are on preprint servers and index them and publish them? It's possible to just call something that you upload to the internet published. Well, of course, the problem with that is that you don't have peer review. So, there's a critical component to all of these modes of publication, and that is, how do you get peer reviewers to come in and vet this stuff? Well, crowdsourcing. This is the way we get most reviews on the internet. And the way that crowdsourcing peer review works is that the author's connections within their professional field are established through ORCID, their unique login ID, and the references within the articles can be scraped for additional experts. Those experts can be vetted for specificity, like does this article match this particular author? The authors can also be vetted for expertise. Is this author qualified to vet this article? And so, at this point, we've basically talked about how to take information, upload it to the internet, make it almost instantly available, easily uploaded, make it free for the author, free for the reader, and reduce the burden on editorial teams. It also, frees up resources for universities to do other great things with their money, and it, allows science to advance more rapidly through the rapid dissemination of information from people to people, but also to AI systems for meta-analysis. But we still haven't talked about how we solve this problem of prestige. So, how do we solve the problem of prestige? The idea here is to compute it. Anybody with a pulse in the academic community has some sort of metric associated with their credentials and their name. So, we know how much they've published, we know where they've published, we know how many people have read their articles, we know how many people have cited their articles, and all these forms of data can go into computing a prestige score. This is already done. There's standard metrics like the H-index. There's a lot of alt metrics that take other sources of data, including posts on social media, et cetera, dissemination to the press, and they compute a importance score for a particular article or for a particular author. You can take these two things, and these two things are reciprocal. You can take these two things and put them out there. It makes life very easy for tenure and promotion committees because they have metrics. In addition to seeing what the person's produced, you can see, what their subjective opinion, how that compares to some sort of objective metric. And you can go back and see what people have said about their work and how they've responded to peer reviews, and have they been professional, have they been courteous. So this raises the next piece, which is reputation management. So, I've talked about how you can take something like reputation and quantify it for both the article and for the author, and that these two things are reciprocal. So, a junior author who does really well on a particular idea and executes it, and everybody loves it, and it floats to the top of the rankings when you do a topic search in that content area, like, quantum computing, then the person has built a reputation, but they also have to manage that reputation. So what does that mean? Well, it means that they are not engaging in catfights. They're thorough in response to their peer reviews. Everything that they do is professional in tone. And likewise, the reviewers are building a reputation. Reviewers have historically just been anonymous, but now they're transparent, and the reviews themselves are likable. So if a particular review gets a lot of likes, the author knows that they have to respond to that review. If it gets a lot of dislikes, then the author doesn't have to respond to the review, and the reviewer may even want to delete that particular comment because it's not getting a lot of traction. So you can see that this is a very efficient, tidy, and neat ecosystem, and it's one for which reviewers and authors receive credit for a job well done. So where are we in this model so far? So I've talked about Apertus. We presented this in the business school in a startup course called Lean Launchpad at Columbia University, and it got a lot of attention, potentially even attracting investors, but the investors really wanted all of us to quit our day jobs and just make a journal, which we weren't interested in doing at the time. Now, a bit more interested in that. Who else has looked at this model? Who else has adopted it? Really, the leader here is probably Chaos. And what they've done is they've taken a preprint server and added AI so that the articles are formatted and copy edited. And this system is also peer reviewed, so it's linked to ORCID ID. You know who is who, and it uses AI to find peer reviewers. So they've implemented a lot of this. It's very easy to upload. You just one-click upload, your article's formatted. That's that. But they are a small group. They haven't really considered prestige. As a disclosure, I'm on the advisory board for Chaos, and they are really focused on keeping their business afloat. So they have a subscription model, and they are not really quite there yet. Although this platform could be used to make something like Apertus work. And then who else is out there? Well, you've got preprint servers that are adding peer reviews. These are easy to use. They're free. However, most are not peer reviewed. Only some of them are. Very few of them are. And they tend not to use AI, so they tend to be just uploaded documents, not very well formatted in most professions. There are other players out there in the commercial area. There's PubPub, Substack. There's a lot of these players. They've been around for a long time. They haven't caught traction among scientists, in part because, they're revenue-based models, and in part because, they're not peer-reviewed, they're not academics, they don't really think about prestige and things like that. So that's where we are. I'm curious to hear what your comments are. Again, Apertus is just a concept, and the main part of it that hasn't been implemented is the prestige part, which I think is the most important piece of disruption within the publishing industry. Thanks very much.